Oh, as the hush comes over the room. If everyone could come on in, take a seat. We will begin Renters Summit 2000. No, I'm kidding. There won't be a 2001. This is it, folks. However, we will be discussing policy. Well, welcome. Good morning. My name is Judy Nicastro. I am one of your 9. Thank you. Thank you. Oh. Thanks. I'm one of your 9 city council members. There are 9 of us, and I am so thrilled to see that so many of my colleagues are here today. If there is one thing that we all agree upon, it is affordable housing is a priority. So yep, it is for our city. I would like to ask my colleagues to come up here so that everyone can be sure to see who they are and talk to them when they get a chance. Peter Steinbrook, Jim Compton, Richard Conlin, Council President Pagler is here, Jan Drago is here. Anyone else? Am I missing anyone? Nick Licata is here.
You're going to thank your staff as well.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah. Come on up, Jan and Nick. This is your city council, and we are your legislative branch. We are not your micromanaging branch. We are your legislative branch. And we all take affordable housing very seriously and as a priority. And together we will trudge through these policies, some of these policies, and many, many others. So I want to thank them for being here, for being so supportive of this effort, and for their continued support financially. You know, the city council is paying for almost all of this. And so it would not be happening if they were not all chipping in, not personally, but as a group. So thank you all, and let's give them a round of applause. Thanks. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I want to do a couple of quick thank yous because this event could not have taken place without a lot of hard work by a lot of wonderful people. The City Council's administrative staff has endlessly been just saying, what else can I do? What else can we do? So let's thank them. Central staff. The council has a wonderful central staff area that does our research. They've done a lot of the research for the policy paper. Also, the city departments, Department of Design, Construction, and Land Use. Diane Sigamora has done a phenomenal job of being open and helping us all along. Department of Neighborhoods, Office of Housing, the Mayor's Office, and the Seattle Center, which has donated this facility to us today. So we could give them a round of applause. Thank you. Great. Yeah. A couple of months ago, I was flipping pancakes at a charity, the Millionaires Club, a wonderful charity, and met Tom O'Keefe, who is CEO of Tully's. And here he was, and Jim was there too, and there he was flipping pancakes at 8 o'clock in the morning. And he said, if there's anything I can ever do, don't hesitate to ask. So I did. I asked, would you donate some Tully's coffee? And he did. And I'm so proud to take his corporate sponsorship and his support because he believes in community and he gives back to community. The CEO of a corporation does not have to be flipping pancakes at 8 a.m. in the morning for our community. So he is a fabulous person. Yeah. Also, so much of this work has been done by volunteers. We have an army of volunteers, and I would like them to please stand. Lauren Melodia, Robin Tier, Stephanie Pure, Gabriella, Ann McNally, Marley Oaks, Anya Benton, Diane Yates, and the Green Party. So you guys could all stand. Thank you for getting out all the information. And if Jill and Charlie can come up here. Jill and Charlie are my 2 legislative aides who, when I offered them the position, I said, here's the one rule is your life is mine until the summit. You'll be doing 80 hours a week until then, and it will be gruesome. And not only have they done that, never once have they complained. They love this project. They love this city. Come on up here, you guys. I want everyone to see these amazing, amazing people. Yes. I know. We really are a team, and we are so passionate about this issue, and all 3 of us are renters. Jill is actually in the market, so for all of you wonderful landlords who are out there, please help her today. And they've just done a phenomenal job and will continue to. Many of you have gotten familiar with, have talked with them through the office, and we'll continue to do that as we work on this policy. But thank you. Thanks, you guys. I also want to thank the participants for the summit. We have moderators and the panelists who are all volunteering their time. All of the organizations and individuals who made wonderful policy suggestions and helped us shape the ideas that we are discussing today and that we will continue to discuss. And all the landlords out there, I've met some of you today, who are keeping rents below market rate. Thank you. Renters who have contacted our office, who have the courage to speak up against some of the fear and the retaliation that they are afraid of experiencing, and just having the courage to voice their opinions. We are also joined by other elected officials and some of their representatives. Nori Katabe is here from co-speaker Frank Chop's office. Larry Gossett is here. Larry, if you could stand, yes. He is with the King County Council. Also, Senator Adam Klein is here. Where's Adam? Yes. He's been a real champion for housing. And Tom Byers is here from the mayor's office. Is Tom here? And the mayor will be joining us later this afternoon. The National Mayor's Conference is in town, so he's busy with that. He'll be here this afternoon. Okay, now for a relatively brief speech. I know I started my political career being much briefer than I am. Okay. I believe we are fighting for the soul of our city. What is the soul of a city? It is the wonderful, diverse people who live in our city. It's not the chain stores or the world-class stadiums. It is the people. The people who live in our communities, walk down our streets, walk in our coffee shops, and work in our coffee shops and bookstores, the people that we become friends and partners with. It is all about people. Seattle is growing and changing quickly. Most of those who have helped define this city and made it such a wonderful place to live are now being priced out of their homes. Some say move somewhere else, go to where the rents are cheaper. I say no. This is our city. What defines a city is the people who live in here, and this is what these policy discussions are about. Renting used to be a temporary situation. A stage to go through on your way to home ownership. Well, that's no longer true. Renting has now become a way of life. And as one of my friends said recently, I used to have a dream of owning a home. Now my dream is just to be able to live alone. So she doesn't have to have a roommate. Living month to month, unable to invest money that we have to use in order to pay rent, restricts us from ever having home ownership opportunities. People are making more money. Although some people are earning more, and we are seeing that some are earning more and some are not earning more, the dollar simply does not go far enough. This is not the 40s or the 50s or the 60s. This is the year 2000, where we now come out of school with enormous debts to pay off. There are family situations. People are uninsured and have medical costs now. It is a very different America. That $20 that you were able to store away, you may not have any more to store away. People from every perspective will argue whether or not we are in a rental housing crisis. But every day, someone calls my office, often desperate, with stories telling us how their rent has gone up 10%, 20%, or 30%. And even if it is 10% and they're on a fixed income, they can't pay that. If your wage didn't go up in correlation to your housing cost, you're at a deficit. You've lost money. I have one of the best landlords in Seattle. I have been a renter in Seattle, well, a renter in New York as well, my whole life. And I was lucky enough 9 years ago to find the best landlord in Seattle. Why is she the best landlord in Seattle? Because she cares about community. She cares about our community. She cares about our neighborhood. She raises our rents when taxes go up. She has the right to pass that on to her tenants. She always gives us 60 days notice of a rent increase so that we can plan ahead. She doesn't want to jolt our budget. When a tenant moves out, which is very, very rarely. She raises the rents to get closer to the market rate, but she always stays under the market. She communicates with her tenants. She is a model landlord. She is this city's best friend right now. And all of the landlords who are keeping rents below market rate, and there are some here today, and there are many in our community who do care about community, are this city's best friends. Imagine right now if they all were getting the market rate. Literally, my landlord could double my rent today, and she'd have a line out her door. I wouldn't be able to afford to live in this city. Others wouldn't be able to. The people who who serve us wouldn't be able to. The disposable renter mentality that is shared by landlords who are only out for the highest rate of return on their investment, regardless of who is displaced, be it a senior, a working person, or someone else in our fragile population, is what I believe who government is there to regulate. And that is why I am asking the public to help us. Do you want your city government to protect its people in its renting population? That's what this is about, whether or not government should intervene in regulating a certain segment of the population and to what extent. This is a public issue debate. Today we will be discussing 6 policy proposals laid out for you on the agenda. It is by no means a complete list. It will take many creative policy ideas implemented together to have an impact on the affordable rental housing crisis. We need your help. We will be having comment cards. We need to hear from you. Someone mentioned the other day how in the mixed-use buildings, they're having a hard time in some of our neighborhoods renting out the commercial space. And they said, what about using that for artist live workspace? That's a great idea. We need to hear those type of suggestions, the creative ideas. I need to give some disclaimers before I wrap up. A few housekeeping measures. Housing is understandably a very emotional issue. So let's keep our discussion today about policy and not make them personal. After the Weekly article, I can't stand up here and tell you that I have not gotten emotional and have said, at a minimum, one inappropriate comment. And it was inappropriate, and it is not respected in my new job, which this new role of a civic leader, I have not fully embraced that things I can say in my living room, I can't say in public. So I ask you, because I do believe it was inappropriate for a public official, and it is not healthy for civic discourse, to rise above that. My mouth is sealed, and for us to have a good, healthy policy discussion. Secondly, state law, thank you. Hey, good. Well, thank you. State law permits city officials to use city resources to lobby the state legislature. Only by advocating official city positions or interests directly to the state official or state employee. This law does not permit city officials to use city resources to urge citizens to lobby the state legislature or to encourage in any other type of indirect lobbying of state officials or employees. What that means is I cannot tell you what to go do in Olympia. So, if you're all waiting for me to organize a big grassroots effort to go down to Olympia to either advocate for a law or to repeal a law, it's not going to happen. That's up to the people. I cannot legally do it. Finally, the council and the city are here to talk about policy, what we can do to make your lives better, the lives of renters. So I hope that you will embark on this journey with me. You're all here today. This is certainly not the beginning, not the end. This is just the beginning. I am happy to introduce Dennis Keating. Last year, when I started talking about rental housing policy and found out about the state law that preempts the city from doing many things, the State House Housing Committee asked me to come down and educate them on rent control. They wanted to hear about what is rent control. And Steve Van Leuven, Representative Steve Van Leuven, called me up and said, here's the data. I knew nothing about rent control, except that I lived in a rent-stabilized apartment in New York City, and it just seemed to work fine. And New York City didn't seem devastated. So Went to the library, did some research, and saw this man's name, Dennis Keating, everywhere. But I couldn't get the book. There was a new book out, and I couldn't get it. Frantically, I went over to the web and found him, emailed him in the middle of the night. The next morning, he popped up and said, "How can I help?" And he sent me his wonderful book, and he helped me learn about various forms of rent regulations, what's worked, what hasn't, and he helped me with my speech, and he is a real champion on this issue and so many others. Dennis is a professor of law and urban planning, chair of the Department of Urban Studies, and is acting dean of the Levin College of Urban Affairs at Cleveland State University. He is one of the leading experts in the areas of urban housing policy, urban and neighborhood development, housing law, and land use law. He has authored several books, some of which include Rebuilding Urban Neighborhoods, Rent Control, Regulations and the Rental Housing Market, and Displacement, How to Fight It. He currently serves as a consultant for several programs surrounding housing and welfare reform, including the Center for Neighborhood Development, as well as HUD's Empowerment Zone programs. Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker for the Renter Summit, Dennis Keating.
Thanks very much. It's a real pleasure to be here today in Seattle, and it's an honor to address a meeting like this. Very impressed by the turnout. Judy asked me to provide an overview as a keynoter to your meetings today, and you're discussing the policies that are in the handout that she and her office.
Teaching in Teach for America. Was it New Orleans or Baton Rouge? Where were
I
you?
was in Baton Rouge proper, working with kids that were both rural and inner city.
Once you left there and then you went to Teach for America headquarters, what was your path after that, after you left Teach for America?
After New York, I went to grad school and I got 2 master's degrees. I got a master's in education and an MBA. It's kind of a good sign of what my wife calls my split personality and what I like to call my hybrid personality. But I have both a business and an education side, and at grad school I studied both.
What are the origins of the business side, and how had that expressed itself up to that point?
You know, the origins of the business side were really, probably too strong to call it mentorship, but some CEOs that I met when I was fundraising. So at the time, Teach for America was raising a lot of money from corporations, and I used to go with the founder, Wendy Kopp, to a lot of these meetings. And at the time, they would say, "Well, you're kind of young, you're a few years out of college, what are you going to do, Ben?" And I dreamed of actually being very much like Wendy and starting something and running a nonprofit that had an impact. And what they said that they thought I could use was some business background, because if you're going to be asking people for $1 million grants, they want to know that you can manage the books. And the reality is we were just kids out of college at that point running. We were responsible for raising $8 million a year, and we were all under 25, so it was quite a trip. But that's what got me turned on to business, was the idea that I could learn how to run nonprofits with business acumen and run it like a business, yet still have that passion and purpose of a nonprofit.
And would you say you actually learned that in business school, or do you think, I mean, it's ironic given that you live in an experiential education environment now, do you think those are lessons that you would have learned equally well or better had you just gone into business for a few years?
Well, when I applied to business school, I applied to, I guess, 6 schools, praying and hoping that I'd get into one, because I was this fish out of water, I call myself nonprofit boy when I got there. And I ended up choosing the one that I went to very carefully. It was Stanford, and they have a program there called the Public Management Program, and it's been around for about 30 years. It's called public management because at the time, 30 years ago, it was very much focused on politics, but now it's become nonprofit management, socially responsible business, and also politics. And there's a good portion of students at Stanford that are thinking about how to use business for social change and thinking about how to use nonprofits in a more sophisticated manner.
Now, your wife jokes that this is your split personality.
Right.
You call it your hybrid personality.
Yeah.
But joking aside, have there been times along the path where it did feel more like a split than like an interwoven hybrid? And how have you dealt with those patches of splitness?
Well, the way I said it in a positive way is that in the best of worlds, you have both the even if you're working in a corporation, I started a company that was a do-good company. And so I'm not biased towards nonprofit or for-profit, but on either way, in the best of both worlds, you have passion and meaning to the work you're doing, and you also have some business sense, and you're not just wasting money and people's time. But the other can happen too, and I've seen a lot of examples. I've been fortunate not to get too involved in organizations like this, but I've advised people and worked with people that are seeing exactly the opposite, that they don't have the passion or purpose in what they're doing, and they also don't have business acumen. I had a really interesting couple of years along the way. Shortly after business school, I worked at a large consulting firm and was working with Fortune 500 companies, advising them, and it was at a time where I got really good at laying off people. That was my job, was going in and helping companies downsize. And there was still a people component to it that was actually really important, was dealing with training and helping people move on to what's next, but it was just a really hard job, and that was probably the closest I get to what you're asking of not having both the passion for it and the business sense.
And were you aware of it at the time that was not speaking to your passion and purpose, or is it much more in hindsight that you see that?
Well, and I would say, not to make everything rosy colored, but in some ways it was speaking to my passion, because I felt like of all people that need somebody who's caring, it's people that are about to get this message. But I knew at the time. I knew that I was getting. A friend of mine once said, "Don't get really good at what you don't want to do," and I was realizing that I was getting very good at systematic layoffs, and that's not what I wanted to do. So I moved on.
That's you also ought to put that on a plaque at Islandwood. What? First of all, for you personally, and then for Islandwood as an institution, what do the next bunch of years look like to you? How do you want things to unfold?
Well, for me personally, that's easy. At least in the next few years, I don't plan on going anywhere. I've been very lucky with my career so far, but I've never been in a place where I wake up in the morning this excited to get there, feel surrounded by a great team, and frankly, the job is what I call, when I hire people, a good stretch. It's not easy for me. I'm learning every day, and sometimes hard. I'm learning hard lessons, but for the most part, it's a good stretch because I feel like I'm in the right place and I'm learning. But it's also like peeling an onion, in that as soon as I got one thing figured out, I feel like there's another layer there that's awaiting for me. So,
what's been stretching you of late?
Well, for me, it's the largest team I've ever managed. We've got, unlike some centers that are built on national parks where they have grounds crews and stuff, we actually take care of the whole 255 acres ourselves. So we have a kitchen, we have a grounds crew, we've got a $5 million budget to raise, and about 60 people that are on site. So for me, it's the largest institution or organization I've ever run, and there's a whole level of both exciting learning that's going on as I'm doing that. Now, you asked where I'm going to be, but more importantly, I think where the organization's going to be. This is a really exciting time for Islandwood. As I said really early on in the interview, it's been like a rocket it's only been 5 years, and it's really, when you get there, it's hard to believe. And as I also mentioned, we're sold out. And so one of the things that's coming up in the next few years is that we're talking about expanding a little bit. We have schools that are on a waiting list, and they're high needs schools, and we don't know how to meet their needs unless we have some new space. So we're building a few more buildings to help accommodate that. And then the big goal, the eye on the prize that the board and I and the staff are chasing after, is to really be doing it so well that even though we expect to always be here, we don't want to have Islandwood, New York and Islandwood, Minnesota. We expect to be doing it so well that a teacher in New York or a principal in Minnesota might say, hey, I need to go visit that place, because that's how experiential education works. And we're doing some things very strategically to get to a point where that'll happen. And a couple of quick examples. We just got a grant from the Paul Allen Foundation, from the Allen Foundation, to do a 3-year, the very first external evaluation we've ever done, which we think will hopefully help us get better, but will also prove that what we're doing is working. And it's interesting because when you go to evaluate something like this, it's very hard. You can do a WASL type test in a classroom, but you can't really do that for a week-long experience in the outdoors. So we're having to create a totally new way of doing evaluation. The other interesting grant we've gotten is from National Geographic, and they don't give grants. So this is pretty special, and what they're talking about doing is taking our curriculum and packaging it, this experiential, I mean, think about that. Hands-on, how do you package that? And taking it the Islandwood curriculum to schools all around the country. So that's sort of, those are the current things that are going on that are Islandwood future. It's expanding our impact beyond our 255
Well,
acres.
it's very exciting, and it goes right back to what we were talking about earlier about how Islandwood becomes not an adjunct to school, but hopefully becomes school itself.
Right, that's right.
And changes the
Yeah.
way people think about school.
Yeah.
Well, Ben, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's been great to be here, Eric. Thanks.
My guest today has been Ben Klasky. He's the executive director of Islandwood, the outdoor education center on Bainbridge Island. Their website is islandwood.org,
You got it.
and you can check them out there. I'm Eric Liu. You've been watching Seattle Voices, and tune in again. Thanks.
Youngsters that are
There's many causes to give to, medical causes, starting children.
I don't know of any other institution that offers the across the whole social variety I watch families it's a common cement all the way from a 3-year-old to the 90-year-old grandmother, and it's something they can talk about, they can enjoy, they can relate to one another. It's a social gathering place that also allows them to take away a better understanding of wildlife and their place in it.
The zoo gets money from the gate and public funds, private funds. Why do you need so much money?
The zoos have changed. Back in the 1920s, we had a park here with a few little cages in it, and people would come to the park to have their picnic and make fun of the animals. We no longer have the ability to do that, and thank God we don't. We now have to really show respect and care, and zoos are really an educational conservation center. They're no longer just menageries of weird wildlife that you don't normally see in your neighborhood. We have a responsibility not only to be good stewards of the animals put in our trust, but we have a responsibility to make sure that that stewardship includes making the visitors and the public around us well aware of their responsibilities to help maintain that wildlife in its natural habitat.
What makes Woodland Park different than other zoos?
That's a great question, and I'm asked that a lot, especially by my peers who come from other parts of North America or from foreign countries, and they almost all have a certain awe about the feeling that the zoo has here, and it's a combination, I think, of first of all our respect for the environment and and the talents that have been applied here, not only in the way of design talents, but also our staff who take care of the plant. The combination of vegetation, of an oasis in the middle of a very urban setting, or right in the middle of a neighborhood here, and the feeling of escape and the wonderment of being able to experience seeing these marvelous wild creatures almost as if you were in Africa or in Asia or in Alaska. And it's just, I think it's a combination of elements that has come together so beautifully that it just inspires people, I think, to want to come and just enjoy it.
What's being done in the area of conservation? I mean, if you get this $125 million, what are you going to do with it as far as conservation is concerned?
Our primary
We might have to close the window here.
Should I fan you as we go?
Yes, where's my fanner?
he is your fan. Oh.
God, I wish I had said that. Doesn't work when it comes out of well, we're rolling.
Rolling? Conservation. What do you plan on doing in the area of conservation with the money over the next few years?
Conservation is probably the most rapidly emerging responsibility I think we have. It's a name that's kind of placed and doesn't have a lot of meaning except in a broad context. You conserve water, you conserve all kinds of things. Conservation to us includes being responsible for our natural resources, but it is specifically more related to our responsibilities to work with the animals we have in terms of breeding, in terms of research on ways to make them have better lives, conservation activities and research with other countries, our work in Africa on the problems of poaching regarding the elephants, our work in China trying to work with the officials over there to save the habitat for the pandas, our work with other zoos like San Diego and Brookfield in regards to embryo implants, in regards to stress and reproductive tests on animals that aren't reproducing well in the wild. It's a broad spectrum of opportunity and responsibility that does require money, and we've been able to do quite a bit with grants and donations, but we see this as requiring really basic funding, ongoing funding, in order to fulfill our responsibility and the community's responsibility throughout the world.
What about education?
Education. See, I almost group education and conservation together for two reasons. One, I don't think you can talk about educating somebody without tying in the whole ethic of conservation, the issue of population growth, the issues of destruction of habitat, to educate our young people and our adults on what is happening in the world and what impact this has on wildlife and the environment is all tied together. Specifically, though, we obviously do want to expand our educational outreach. I view the zoo as being almost a studio or a laboratory, and there are many ways using technology where we ought to be able to reach into every home in the Northwest and show the story that is occurring here, tie in with some of our projects that are occurring in other parts of the world. And we're not using technology to the degree that we should yet. And the successful completion of this fundraising effort will allow us to completely network the zoo, tie in hopefully through web pages and other types of educational channels to reach every classroom and every household.
That's marvelous. If you had a donor in front of you who could give you millions in one gift, what would you say to that person to convince him?
That he probably couldn't give it to anything that would have a more lasting impact on thousands of lives into the future. The zoo is an old institution that appeals to almost every household. The surveys that we've done, 90% of the households have attended the zoo in the past 3 years, so at least once. And almost everybody in the community knows about it and reads about it, and it does have such a positive tie, I think, to our community. and the future of it is going to even be more important than the past. I can't think of anything that would be more beneficial to a larger number of people than a gift of that magnitude to our institution.
When you finally leave your job as director, I mean, you've been executive director for
Almost 15 years.
Really? My goodness.
I've never held a job this long.
It's personal best.
Your last day, you're walking out the gates. What's the legacy that you hope that you leave behind?
Pride. Pride on the part of the community and its institution. Pride in my contribution to it, which has been relatively small. I think I've been very fortunate to have been able to serve this community in the best job in town. And also a pride in the stewardship that I think the zoo will be left in the hands of, whether it be the community, the Zoo Society, or the thousands of people who come every year. I think there's a real high appreciation of this asset that we have here, and I think it's going to be well cared for. Although this campaign is going to be critical, I think to that care and stewardship for the future.
How are we doing on tape?
29. That would be a good time to change.
And at this point, we'd like all the candidates to come up and take your seats, please.
Nice and tight.
You got to be good pals tonight. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again so much for coming out on this great summer night. City Club and the Seattle Times make a very strong partnership. Last week, we joined together to stage the county executive debate. That was out at Maidenbauer Center in Bellevue. It was hosted and moderated by C.R. Douglas, who's over there, and Lynn Varner, my colleague from the Seattle Times. They're sitting together. I think that one must have worked out pretty well. It was a kind of a prim and proper luncheon that we had over there, very lovely. I was delighted that City Club invited me to co-moderate this debate with the whole happy hour. I wanted my audience to be in a better mood. The real truth is we scheduled this mayoral debate tonight because it was the only way we could think of to get Seattle Mayor Greg Nickels off the Sound Transit trains. all in good jest here. So give me a chance here to introduce all the candidates. Many of them are known to you, but I will just go through. Starting with James Donaldson. He's a businessman, former Seattle Supersonic. Sort of hurts to say supersonic, doesn't it? Jan Drago, city council member for 16 years, and the current chairwoman of the Transportation Committee. Joe Mallahan, the T-Mobile executive you're hearing so much about. He was a community organizer in Chicago, he likes to say, because that's a kind of a hot resume item there. Mike McGinn, former chairman of the Sierra Club and founder and director of the Seattle Great City Initiative. Mayor Greg Nickels, our current mayor, who's very good-natured when I say all these things at these events. He was first elected in 2001. He is now seeking a third term. And Norman Stigler on the end, who is a corporate recruiter and a professional matchmaker. Thank you all so much for coming out here. I was interested in that. I was thinking about that. So let me go through the rules here because there's several of them. The general flow of this evening for all of you. Each candidate is going to have a chance to give an opening statement. There will be 2 rounds of individualized questions, each of those followed by a round of a single question posed to all the candidates. Between those two rounds will be City Club, they love this, the lightning round, in which the candidates will be, do you have those? Yes. Okay. Will be allowed to answer only by holding up a card that says yes, no, or waffle. Please don't hold up all three. That's too hard to track. We will then take questions from the audience before the candidates make closing statements. So about the audience guidelines for this evening. Please hold all applause until the end of the program. At the appropriate time, you will be asked, you in the audience who have things to say, questions to ask, to raise your hand and indicate that you would like to ask a question. We have a mic tender, Ed Walker. I don't see him at this moment, but I know he's here, so he'll be very visible at that point. Each questioner will be asked to give their name before stating their question. Now let's define what a question is. A question is something like 30 seconds, and it's not a statement, it's really a question. We do prefer questions asked to individual candidates so that with so many candidates, we don't have to go so much up.
I don't have no evidence of that. I do not know that. And at the same time, it's because we have a community that has heightened anxiety. It's because we have Y2K and all the attendant uncertainties that occur around that. It's because that we have a force that needs to be available for all of our citizens throughout the city. And it's because all other support forces in the region are taking care of their own communities. And so it was with that in mind, and the question is, what right do we have as citizens to take any risk? If there's a way, and that is and has to be our first responsibility.
Mr. Mayor, in closing the center, you're pushing everybody out into other areas. Aren't you making whatever crowd there is much more difficult for the police to monitor?
Well, we thought about that as well, and if you look at what's happening, I think there's a diminished interest in going to public assembly, and that this will just further that. And the issue really was, are we going to host it? And by the city hosting facilities, we're inviting people to come down. And that to do that has an implied promise that everything's going to be safe in a large area as opposed to a discrete area that you can provide that assurance.
Mr. Mayor, that's what it sounded like to me.
Washing my hands?
Yeah, that you said, well, the city
Every
has some
morning.
implied feeling with the people that if it's a city-sanctioned event, that everything's fine. But if it's not city-sanctioned, then...
No, I'm saying a city-sanctioned event in a 72-acre park was one of the considerations that we took into account, that if we're inviting people, then it carries an added responsibility that we provide assurance, given all the levels of uncertainty that exist in our community, from lots of different impacts, starting with Y2K, but there's all of the other elements around the year 2000 that carry other connotations that we needed to be concerned about. And it was a question of, is it appropriate for us to take that risk on behalf of our citizens? And I think I concluded that it wasn't.
Mr. Mayor, you received a fair amount of criticism for a lack of planning in the minds of some people for WTO, underreaction to threats. Is there a chance now you're just a nervous Nelly?
No, Brian, I think I'm not going to revisit WTO. The council's going to be having that opportunity over the next 2 months. I acted on the best advice that we could get with our police department and all of the attendant security agencies, and lived with it. In the same time, this is a different event, and that we listened to our police and fire department, our experts, applied our own common sense judgment in terms of level of risk, and made a decision. There's no question it was a tough decision. We're fully aware of the questions you might be asking. But in the end, our responsibility is to the safety of all of our citizens. And on that basis, we made this decision.
Did the police and fire advise you?
On this question, when you look at this and the WTO security problems, does this essentially lead you to conclude that a city this size of Seattle, with the number of police, the size of the police department that it has, cannot host an event this size of the WTO or New Year's Eve without a far greater police force? Now, this is a question that Las Vegas is asking now because they have a big celebration coming up. Washington and New York are still going to hold celebrations. What does it say about a city this size and its police department?
Well, I don't think it has to do with the size of the police department. It has to do with all of the other activities that are occurring on a very special New Year's Eve, that I don't anticipate this setting any precedent whatsoever, except perhaps, as I said, Y3K. that it's a special set of circumstances that exist in our city at this time that led us to conclude that the prudent thing to do here was to put safety of our citizens first, which we did.
But did you arrive at this decision a few days ago or just yesterday?
We have been thinking about this for weeks at least, and in intense conversations.
Did police and
with
fire
them.
advise you to close the center at 6?
I got advice from police, fire, council, everybody else I could listen to, and in the end, I'm the one who took the am taking responsibility for making the final decision.
What's the
Don't most of those
impact
pivotal-
on businesses around the Seattle Center? Have they been able to tell you that? Not that that would factor into your decision, but I'm just wondering.
I don't think it should have much impact at all. If anything, it might help businesses that are not at the Seattle Center. Ginny, you may want to address that.
We have not been able to assess anything what the financial impact would be, and I think right now the best you can say is that it could work to their advantage and it could be a disadvantage, and I don't think we have a way to say
No
that.
businesses per se will be cordoned off as part of that area, is that
No,
right?
no,
center itself?
just the campus itself.
And
What happens if people don't leave?
We have experience with doing this. This is not the first time we've ever done it. You know, when we gate for Bumbershoot, we clear the grounds at night. When we've gated in the past for the Bite, we've cleared the grounds, and we've never had that experience. And I will say, you know, when you ask the question, is it pushing people out into, at that time of day, our experience is that that's not when your crowds are the largest. It's when it's around after 10:30 that they're really getting bigger and bigger. So we're not pushing large numbers. These are families who will be down there. All of the programming has been designed for families. We are still fenced and gated that day. It is a non-alcohol zone. It is not an unruly crowd. These are people in Seattle. And I think the decision that you're hearing is that if the city's going to err, it's going to do it on the side of safety. And that's the decision that's been made.
Virginia, in light of this, has the private
One more
party up
question,
inside
Evan.
the Space Needle attempted to get out of their evening up there, their contract at all?
To my knowledge,
No.
they have not, and I've talked with the Space Needle people late last night about that planning. The fireworks and the private party are still going forward,
And I talked to them this morning.
they've got plans.
You talked to the people in Oregon who are...
No, I talked to the Space Needle.
Owners.
Are you expecting this to be a politically unpopular decision?
You know, I've not made and never will make a decision based on political popularity. My responsibility is to the citizens of this city and their safety, and I made the decision on that basis. Thank you very much.
Those people are interested, we also have programming changes for the center. Yeah, pick these up here. Snag half over there if you could.
Undergraduate in economics and then a master's in business, which was in marketing. And I started out, was put in Seattle by the Ford Motor Company and was with them for 5 years here, working with essentially small business with the dealer network in Eastern Washington, Southern Oregon, and Portland. So I started out with sort of a business base and somewhat of a marketing base. And then when I came to the city, in effect, I guess I used to some degree my marketing skills because my job was with federal money and federal grants and working with foundations and the legislature, and so you're essentially marketing the city's interests in Washington, D.C. and in Olympia, and also with our metropolitan agencies. And also I had, for a number of years, the sister city connections with Seattle, which are extensive, we have now 21 sister cities. I had that from the inside, and now I chair the commission I have for a number of years for the city from the outside. So when this came up, I thought I'd pretty much done what I could at City Hall, and I received a phone call. They were looking for somebody like me to head up this new organization. Yeah, I thought it would be a completely new challenge. I created the intergovernmental function at City Hall, so it offered me the opportunity to create something new again. And when I did a little bit of checking, I realized there wasn't much in the country, so I'd be cutting something out of whole cloth if I could pull it off. And it was going to be complicated to do, but it was, as when George called me, he said, Bill, if we hire somebody who understands the politics of Singapore and doesn't understand the politics of Seattle, they won't survive the job. So we need somebody initially to institutionalize this who can deal with people of different political parties, different jurisdictions, people in business and government and labor. It's going to be complicated, and we need somebody to manage that, but also has the marketing and some international skills to be able to understand where the beef is, what the content is that you need to provide.
Did you feel like there was a time horizon shift for you? I mean, when you work in politics, in any level, there's a way in which the urgent issues of right now dominate your thinking. But in a role like the one you have currently at the Trade Development Alliance, your bread and butter is thinking about trends that unfold over the course of the next generation.
It is both. We're preparing a mission to Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand this fall. We're going partly because the ambassador to Singapore is from Bellevue, from this area, and wants us to come. On the other hand, strategically, we're looking at long-term relationships with those countries. On the other hand, I got to worry about bird flu. Mm-hmm. I've got to worry about airline strikes, or I've got to worry about the political situation in Thailand right now, with elections coming in December, and the military coup of the past, and the transition back to democracy, and whether there could be some instability. You've got to worry about terrorism around the world. I was in Morocco last year, and of course there's been a couple incidents in the last week in Morocco. So you're dealing with both the immediate, committing yesterday to paying for a certain number of plane tickets, substantial deposits, when people's money is not coming in yet. I said, you're dealing with the here and the now, and you're dealing with the long-term strategic view of where this community should be, not only keeping our current customers happy, but where are the opportunity markets of the future, like India, where we should be building business relations that may not come to fruition for 10 years.
Now, you're describing when you first took on this role 16 years ago or so, that there was a lot that maybe was mappable, transferable from your skills in politics at City Hall to creating an organization like the Trade Development Alliance. But I imagine there was a whole bunch of other stuff that wasn't particularly familiar. And how did you go about seeking guidance or models or mentors or advisors during that period where you're having to essentially invent an organization for a purpose that is pretty large and strategic for the region?
Well, the first thing I did was I was going to have a small staff. And so the first thing I did is I sat down and figured out what I thought needed to be done as best I could. And that was talking to people too, looking at the Dutch model and talking to the head of that organization. And then I said, okay, what am I good at, and what am I not good at or I don't like to do? And immediately I designed my deputy's job description to be what I think I needed to complement me.
Now, right there, though, did you do that on your own, or did you have somebody kind of in conversation with to point out to you, Bill, you're not so good at this, or these aren't so much your strengths?
Oh, I've been around long enough to know what I'm not good at. And I know what I don't like to do. If you said, Bill, go in a closet, you're a type A personality, go in and write a 10-page report over the next 3 weeks and don't come out till you're finished, I'd be in an asylum like this, you know. So no, I immediately I kind of assessed. I did, with a lot of experience, both the deputy mayor and government affairs, and having a small office, knew what kind of skills it would be. But I also looked for language skills, cultural sensitivity skills on my staff. So one of my first people spoke Chinese and Mandarin, and had fair reasonable experience there. I had another person who knew Southeast Asia quite well and had lived in Indonesia and some of the Muslim countries, and had another, So I really went out and recruited and looked for people who could deliver some of the things I felt we needed, and that I was not, I don't want to. Things from my generation, but I don't have great language skills. I mean, I can, as a child, I could speak Brooklyn. I could barely understand people from Queens. People from Manhattan were completely another language to me. But and of course, when you're a child in Brooklyn, English is a second language to start with. But I look to balance that out. But along the way, I know seeking advice of people and being open to advice is important to do. Therefore, for type A personalities, listening is important to do, and particularly when dealing internationally.
Do you feel like you have, in these years at the Trade Development Alliance, become a better listener than you had been in politics?
Well, I was pretty successful in politics, I think. I didn't, well, most of the campaigns I worked on won. But, no, I think it's important. I think what happens is, what's different is when you're listening to people generally from one culture, you can pick things up fairly easily. I mean, because if you get to know it politically. What's more complicated is the nuances when you're dealing with somebody internationally. In certain cultures, they may say yes, but yes doesn't mean, it means yes, I heard you, not yes, I agree with you. And if you don't understand that with that culture, then you will make mistakes. And it's a complicated world, and what makes it more complicated is most business, government officials, educators, because of the size of the United States, focus on the United States. They know who our president is, they know who important people are, they know a lot about America. You go to their country and you don't know who their prime minister is, you don't know their government structure, you don't know, and you don't know their culture. And so you make mistakes. Now, some people overseas will accept Americans don't know what's going on, but I think it's important to try to know. And I also, as one person once said to me, if you understand the people of the Philippines and their culture, you'll better understand some of the people who live on Beacon Hill. So it's not, it helps you here also. Dealing with people who are more recent immigrants, which we, of course, as our immigrant country has a fair number of.
Let me ask you in our final minute here, you had alluded earlier to some aspects of our culture in this region that make us competitive and successful, whether it's a high tolerance for risk-taking and failure even, or our multiculturalism. Are there other aspects of the culture here that give you concern or that worry you, that could, if left unchecked or unchanged, impede our competitive position?
Well, I think we have to, as our country has to do, is to worry about the jobs in the future for people who are less educated. The unemployment rate goes up dramatically from a person with a less than a high school degree up through a person with a master's degree in computer science. The wage differentials are growing between people who are educated and not. So I think one of the things for our region, and continued support for a lot of things, is to really give some better focus to how do we provide the jobs and for the people who don't complete high school or just complete high school, because some of these jobs, whether we like it or not, are going to go overseas. So it's just less expensive to do things.
Well, it's always a joy to hear you stitch together these different big pictures into an even bigger picture. And Bill, sure appreciate your joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
My guest today has been Bill Stafford. He's the president of the Trade Development Alliance of Greater Seattle. And you've been watching Seattle Voices. I'm Eric Liu, and I hope you'll tune in again.
Seconds to respond. And the question is, what do you see as the next most compelling transportation priority down the line? Norrin?
Well, for me, we need train transit service built in the city of Seattle. The monorail, I voted for that monorail every time, even when the price tag doubled. But I think we went about it the wrong way. We shouldn't have created a separate agency to create the monorail for the city of Seattle when we already have an agency in the region building train transit service. We should have contracted that $5 billion, which was the most recent yes vote, with Sound Transit, so they could build train transit service in the city of Seattle. West Seattle, Ballard, they need train transit service to connect them to downtown, especially when that viaduct is under construction, or the replacement of the viaduct is under construction. And also, it's a win-win for the community. My whole campaign is all about partnerships. Government cannot do everything by itself. We need to work together within our community and between communities. So if Sound Transit had used that $5 billion to become more of an expert we wouldn't have wasted the $100 million of taxpayers' money. Sound Transit would have become more experts in building train transit in the region, which would have benefited the entire Puget Sound.
Greg Nichols, what should be the next transportation priority for Seattle?
Well, I think that the thing about transportation in Seattle is to understand it needs to be a balance, that shoving more vehicles through neighborhoods is not what transportation is about. It's building communities, and communities where people have choices of how they get around. Sidewalks that they can walk on, bicycle lanes that they can ride on safely, a transit system that can get you where you want to go, and the regional network of light rail that I am so proud to have worked on over these last 21 years that allow us in 15 years to see a fundamental transformation of how we think about getting around our city and our region.
Mike McGinn, what do you think is the next transportation priority for Seattle?
I think the biggest issue is how do we figure out how to integrate our transportation financing sources and our transportation needs. Light rail is a huge success, but bus service, Metro bus service, is about to be cut 20% next year, where the state legislature has said let's spend billions on a tunnel. We have a $60 billion statewide unfunded maintenance backlogs on our state highway system. We also have city streets that we don't have the resources to take care of. We have an unfunded bike plan, an unfunded bike master plan. So the real trick here is we've got to stop thinking about transportation as being one big project here and another big project there, but instead we have to start thinking about how do we use the 26% of our city that's in public right-of-way to more efficiently move people using all modes. How do we use our interstate freeway system, which connects all our urban centers in the region? How do we start using more transit on those? And that's a much tougher problem than finding financing for one project. That's going to take a lot more regional cooperation and really rethinking what our priorities are for how we use our resources.
Joe Malahan, what's the next big transportation priority for Seattle?
Geez, Ross, you said challenge. Can I answer the first question? The next biggest transportation, well, the priority is the challenge. The priority is that we manage very well 4 or 5 really big projects that are about to launch. We've got Spokane Street rebuild. We've got viaduct replacement. We have 520 expansion, light rail expansion. And we need to coordinate very well these projects so that we minimize the impact to traffic flow and to business activity. We need a manager who is skilled at juggling multiple projects and ensuring that multiple teams are in alignment and cooperating and communicating together. I will, as the next mayor of Seattle, replace leadership in the Seattle Department of Transportation. There are too many red flags. The public knows it, and we have to make that change. I also think I have the most management experience of any member of this panel, and I think I'm the one to get these transportation projects done in a way that doesn't wreck our economy. Thank you.
Jan Drago, the next big transportation priority for our city.
Okay, well, after 8 years with the Alaskan Way Viaduct, we finally have a decision and we have project funding. The next big priority, after 15 years, we still don't have a decision and we don't have funding for SR 520. That's the next big priority. And we need to make the decision about the design on the west side of the bridge, which is the Seattle side, by the end of the year and go forward with the legislature to fund the project.
Okay, it's your turn. After James Donaldson answers this question, get ready to put your hand up and we'll have a microphone go to you. James Donaldson, the city's next transportation priority, what is it?
We need to ensure that the investments we've made in the projects that are on the table right now, 520, Spokane Street, Mercer Street, we need to make sure that these programs and these projects come together and integrate seamlessly. We cannot afford to be locked up in gridlock, and God forbid something happens with the viaduct before any of these things get underway with a moderate to major earthquake that the feds will just come in and totally say, shut it down, and nobody's using it. We don't want to see that. So we need to be serious about it. We need to move forward with it quickly. We need to implement our plans smartly. I've lived around the world in great cities, Athens and Rome and Hong Kong, and I've rode these integrated systems for months and months on end seamlessly from 50 kilometers out all the way into the core of the city. that can be done ultimately, but we need to take care of business here first and make sure that the systems we have in place are working. Thank you.
All right, audience, it's your part of the show now. I hope you're ready with some questions. Let me just review the rules for a quick second here. We do better without speeches. Actual questions are preferred. We prefer questions posed to individual candidates, but you might have one for two of them or something like that. We're flexible. We can do that. We do have a mic tender. Ed Walker is here.
We know we have questions out here. I spotted this young lady over here first.
Here it goes. The way you do it is you raise your hand, and Ed comes running over. That was a light gate there, but anyway, he comes over, and you start talking. First question, please.
Hi, my name is Tamara in the 37th District, and this is a fantastic question from everyone. I would love for Nichols to answer it, but maybe Malahan too. The question is, and if you don't have a smart answer and you just want to tell me, I'll get back to you, that's fine. The topic is safety and rights. And this has to do with what happened after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, my second favorite city. And it also has to do with what recently took place in Congress when they were threatened with martial law if they did not sign the bailout. And I wanted to know if there was a natural or man-made catastrophe here. Even when we think of man-made, we can think, man-made would be terrorism, maybe natural would be an earthquake or swine flu, right? Wanted to know, how would you uphold the rights of the citizens here in Seattle if martial law is a reality that's being pushed on you by Homeland Security or by FEMA?
Well, that's not a question we've had out on the campaign trail before. So I became mayor on January 1st of 2002, so shortly after 9/11. And the idea of us being attacked was a very real one, and the idea of how do we protect our city and our people from that or from a natural disaster was really on the front burner. And so we have worked very hard to make us better prepared. We've created a new emergency operations center, state-of-the-art, down south of Yesler Street. We have drilled on a lot of different scenarios, including snow. And we have worked hard to try and figure out how do we organize our community to be independent during a disaster. For instance, if we had an earthquake the size of Kobe's 1995 earthquake, they had 197 fires break out after that earthquake. That would be something like 6 for every one of our fire stations. So we would be struggling to try and keep up with that, and we'd need people to be independent and be organized within their neighborhood. And recognizing what happened in Katrina, we have particularly reached out to communities that would struggle, senior citizens, folks whose language is a language other than English, low-income communities, to make sure that they are not left behind in the way that we saw people left behind in New Orleans. Have not dealt with the issue of martial law, but I think to the extent that you provide support to people, you let them know that you've thought through what's going